This series begins by showing the final battle of the All-Valley Karate Championship held in 1984 between Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence. Although Daniel injured his leg, he refused to give up and chose to continue the match. Despite the injury, surprisingly, Daniel managed to knock his opponent down several times, so Johnny's sensei, John Kreese, told Johnny to tackle Daniel's leg so that Johnny could win the championship. Johnny seemed shocked by Kreese's order, but he chose not to question it further, as he had to win the championship to retain his title as the reigning champion. In the final round, Johnny managed to knock Daniel down and level the match, although Daniel eventually won the championship by using his ultimate technique to knock Johnny down. 33 years later, Johnny, who was once a karate star, is now living a less fortunate life, living in a rundown apartment and working odd jobs to make ends meet. One day, Johnny meets a teenage boy named Miguel Diaz who has just moved into the apartment building where Johnny lives. Miguel tries to be friendly to Johnny, who is his neighbor, but Johnny blatantly ignores Miguel and just leaves. While driving his car somewhere, Johnny saw a billboard advertising Daniel's car dealership, which has now become a successful and wealthy businessman. Because Johnny was defeated by Daniel in the Karate Championship a few years ago, Johnny still holds a little grudge, so he is not at all happy with the success and wealth achieved by Daniel. Johnny gets a job to install a TV on the wall, but he turns out to have installed the TV on the wrong wall, and his client demands that Johnny fix the mistake immediately. Johnny told her that he still had other work to do and tried to persuade his client that he could move the TV to the right place, but his client refused, so they got into an argument and Johnny accidentally called his client a bitch. As a result of his profanity, his client reported Johnny to his boss, and Johnny was fired from his job. Later that evening, while Johnny was buying a slice of pizza at a convenience store, he accidentally bumped into Miguel, who was buying medicine for his grandmother. While enjoying his pizza outside, Johnny saw Miguel, who was being bullied by a group of students who were angry because Miguel accidentally revealed their identity as high school students so that they could not buy beer. They then got into a fight until Miguel accidentally hit Johnny's car. Upon seeing that, Johnny, who had been reluctant to intervene in the teenagers' fight, suddenly became upset and told them to leave. However, one of the teenage boys, Kyler, apparently recognized Johnny as a casual worker and then insulted him, so Johnny became even angrier and beat them up. Johnny, who was a former karate champion when he was a teenager, was able to easily take down the delinquents, although in the end, he had to stay in jail overnight for beating them up. The next day, Miguel approached Johnny and thanked Johnny for helping him. Miguel, who was impressed with Johnny's martial arts skills, asked Johnny to train him, but Johnny immediately refused because he had to find another job that made more money than being a karate instructor. Upon arriving home, Johnny is further upset by the presence of his stepfather, Sid Weinberg, who brazenly enters his apartment and goes through his belongings, even though Sid is the one who released Johnny from prison. Sid told Johnny that his purpose in seeing Johnny was to get rid of Johnny from his life forever by giving Johnny some money. However, Johnny refused Sid's money and saying that he would never use Sid's money. While watching TV and drinking, Johnny recalled the moment when he became the karate champion and the moment when he defeated the bullies who were bullying Miguel. But unexpectedly, his TV suddenly displayed Daniel, who was advertising his car dealership and gave discounts on the purchase of several leading car brands. An annoyed Johnny tried to turn off his TV, but since the remote didn't work, Johnny threw a bottle of beer which broke the TV screen. Johnny then decided to take a walk in his car while recalling his teenage years when he hung out with his friends and also had a crush on a pretty girl. Not only the good memories with his friends, Johnny also remembers about the bitter memories when his sensei scolded him severely after he lost to Daniel in the 1984 All-Valley Karate Championship. While reminiscing about his past, surprisingly, a group of girls accidentally hit Johnny's car and decided to run away instead of apologizing and being responsible for paying for the damage to his car. Johnny then called the towing company and became even more upset when he learned that his car would be taken to Daniel's auto repair shop. The following day, Johnny reluctantly enters Daniel's auto repair shop and intends to move his car to be repaired at another shop. Johnny avoided his encounter with Daniel as much as possible, but he seemed to be out of luck because Daniel was in the workshop and immediately greeted Johnny in a friendly manner. Daniel seemed happy to see Johnny after so long, but they almost got into an argument when Daniel mentioned Johnny's ex-girlfriend who was snatched by Daniel and also Daniel's victory over Johnny in the Karate Championship. Johnny had refused Daniel's offer to waive the cost of repairing Johnny's car at his car repair shop, but he finally accepted the offer after Daniel said that the cost of repairing his car was more expensive than the price of the car. Before leaving, Johnny had seen one of the girls who crashed his car last night and found out that the girl was none other than Daniel's daughter, Samantha or Sam LaRusso. Arriving home, Johnny then approached Miguel and told him that he agreed to train Miguel and asked Miguel to call him sensei. Johnny decided to use the money given by Sid to rent a place that he would later use as a dojo or a place where they practiced karate and named his dojo Cobra Kai. The scene then switches and shows Daniel, who is not only successful as a businessman, but also manages to be a good husband and father to his family. Daniel is also a boss who treats his employees well and has good relationships with his clients. Just when Daniel thinks his life is perfect, he suddenly sees the banner of the Cobra Kai dojo and remembers his past when Johnny and the Cobra Kai students bullied him. Meanwhile, Johnny and Miguel began their first training, where Johnny emphasized Miguel to strike first from his opponent, instead of anticipating his opponent's attack. Johnny also taught Miguel about Cobra Kai's idealism of strength and no mercy, because being compassionate only done by the weak people. Johnny even ignores the fact that Miguel has asthma and instead tells him to do push-ups. In the middle of training, an officer from the city health office came to the dojo to conduct an inspection, because Johnny apparently had not fulfilled several requirements to open a sports studio. He then asked Johnny to complete the requirements before the end of the week because next week he would come back to inspect. On the other hand, Daniel tried to get his son, Anthony, to play basketball, but Anthony preferred to spend his time playing mobile games alone. An annoyed Daniel then approached his wife, Amanda, and told her about Johnny setting up a karate dojo called Cobra Kai, which, somehow, upset him. Daniel then decided to go home, but he became even more upset when he found that Sam was having a party at home without his knowledge. Daniel immediately broke up the party and scolded Sam in front of her schoolmates, so Amanda then reprimanded him, because scolding Sam in front of her friends would embarrass their daughter. Later that night, Daniel remembered the past when he practiced karate with Sam as a child, where at that time Sam looked very enthusiastic about practicing karate. Daniel then approached Sam in her room and intended to apologize for scolding Sam in front of her schoolmates. Surprisingly, Sam apologized first to her father because she had invited her schoolmates to party at home without asking permission from her parents. After making up with his daughter, Daniel then asked Sam about her schoolmates, and Sam revealed that she often sent text messages with a boy named Kyler. Upon hearing that, Daniel then took the initiative to invite Kyler to dinner with his family, so that he could get to know Kyler more closely. The next day in the school cafeteria, Miguel gets acquainted with two geeky teenage boys named Dimitri and Eli. Shortly afterward, Sam and her friends arrive and they immediately become the center of attention because they are known as the rich girls. Eli thinks that Yasmin, one of the rich girls, is mocking him because Yasmin has been looking at him. Upon hearing that, Miguel thinks that Yasmin might just be talking about something else, because even though they are beautiful, they are not necessarily rude. In reality, Yasmin was mocking Eli and also a girl named Aisha who was fat. As a new student who didn't know anything about the school, Miguel had the courage to approach Yasmin and her clique and try to get to know them. However, Miguel quickly abandoned his intention after the bullies who had bullied him suddenly appeared and immediately sat down with the rich girls. After school, Miguel practiced karate with Johnny at his dojo, where Johnny began to teach him some karate punching techniques. In the middle of practice, Johnny gets a phone call from the vice principal of North Hills High School who informs him that his son, Robbie Keene, was caught bringing illegal drugs to school. Later that evening, Sam invited her schoolmate, Kyler, to have dinner with her family, but Kyler didn't like the dinner that Daniel had prepared, so Amanda took Sam to the kitchen to cook another dish for Kyler. After they left, Daniel tried to chat with Kyler and found out that Kyler and his friends were involved in a fight with a middle-aged man who was good at karate. Upon hearing that, Daniel immediately thought of Johnny because he was a former karate champion who had won several tournaments. After dinner, Daniel went to Johnny at his dojo and tried to warn him to stay away from Kyler and his friends who were his daughter's schoolmates. However, Johnny completely ignored the warning as he revealed to Daniel that Kyler and his friends bullied a geeky teenage boy and he beat them up to defend the boy. Johnny then mentioned Daniel's daughter, which then made Daniel angry and almost sparked an argument. At the same time, Miguel suddenly appeared and Daniel then warned Miguel not to believe anything Johnny said. Before leaving, Daniel told Johnny that it wasn't over and Johnny replied that he wasn't going anywhere, as if he was preparing to challenge Daniel. The following days, while Miguel practiced his punching techniques at Cobra Kai's dojo, Johnny looked anxious because he had to pay off his overdue bank loan, but he had no money. Therefore, Johnny began to promote his dojo to the residents of All Valley by distributing flyers on the streets, although most of them ignored him, even throwing the flyers in front of Johnny. On the other hand, Daniel was still thinking about Johnny's words about Kyler bullying other boys, but Amanda asked him to trust their daughter's opinion about Kyler, instead of thinking about Johnny's words that often bullied Daniel when they were in high school. Daniel, who was about to ask his daughter something, then entered Sam's room and found a message from Kyler implying that Kyler intended to do something indecent to Sam. At the same time, Amanda appeared and caught Daniel secretly reading the text message, but Daniel lied by saying that he was just checking the internet connection in their house. The next day at school, when Miss Blatt was explaining about cyberbullying to the students, Aisha then approached Sam and suggested that they both wear matching costumes during the Halloween dance party. However, Sam told Aisha that she would be wearing a Lakers girl's costume, and Yasmin replied that they didn't have the size for Aisha, so Aisha moved her stool away from them. After school, Miguel showed Johnny that he had created the Cobra Kai website and planned to promote their dojo through social media. Upon seeing Miguel's enthusiasm and initiative to get people interested in practicing karate at his dojo, Johnny was impressed and took Miguel to the school swimming pool to practice new techniques. After tying Miguel's hands, Johnny then dropped Miguel into the pool and told him to swim with only his legs, which was intended to train his leg muscles before Miguel practiced kicking techniques. Miguel initially struggled to do the exercises, but Johnny continued to encourage him, so Miguel began to get used to doing the exercises. In the following days, Miguel began practicing kicking techniques and made significant progress, making Johnny feel proud that Miguel had mastered some basic techniques in karate. On Halloween, Johnny takes the initiative to make a Halloween costume for Miguel and take him to school to attend the Halloween dance party. On the other hand, Daniel accepted Miss Blatt's offer to be the chaperone during the Halloween dance party, although Sam had objected because she did not want her father to embarrass her again in front of her schoolmates. While Daniel kept an eye on the partying students, Johnny took advantage of the quiet school situation by sticking flyers on lockers and walls and giving the flyers to some students he met. At the Halloween party, Dimitri and Eli seem impressed to see Miguel wearing a skeleton costume. However, Daniel thinks otherwise because the skeleton costume reminds him of Johnny and his friends who wore skeleton costumes and bullied him a few years ago. Daniel tried to chase Miguel and his friends who left the party hall, but instead he met Johnny, who was sticking flyers to promote Cobra Kai. Daniel then warned Johnny to leave the school and not instill Cobra Kai's ideals in teenagers or anyone else because these ideals could endanger themselves and others. In the middle of their debate, Daniel suddenly saw his daughter who went to another room with Kyler, so he then left Johnny and tried to catch up with Sam and her boyfriend. In a classroom, Kyler was about to show something to Sam, but Daniel suddenly appeared and misunderstood because he thought that Kyler wanted to do something indecent to Sam. Sam, who was annoyed at her father for embarrassing her, left the place saying that she didn't want to talk to Daniel. Sam then returned to the party and found that Yasmin and her friends were insulting Aisha on social media, so the other students joined in making fun of her. Sam felt bad for Aisha because she chose to keep quiet, instead of defending Aisha in front of her schoolmates. Aisha, who was annoyed at being made fun of, then left the party while looking at Sam with an angry and disappointed look. Soon after that, Kyler and his friends went to the boys' locker room and discussed about Daniel, who had foiled Kyler's plan to deceive Sam. Unexpectedly, Miguel and his friends were also in the place and eavesdropped on their conversation. However, they were soon caught by Kyler and his friends as Eli accidentally dropped the cleaning tools. Upon knowing that the delinquent students were going to bully them, Eli and Dimitri hurried to escape from the place, while Miguel ventured to fight back by kicking Kyler. Miguel managed to knock Kyler down, but Kyler's friends then ganged up on him and beat him up. Moments later, when Kyler and his friends left the boys' locker room, Johnny happened to be standing nearby and heard them talking about Miguel. Upon hearing that, Johnny rushed into the boys' locker room and found Miguel, who was down after being beaten badly by Kyler and his friends. Johnny rushed Miguel back to his house, but his mother, Carmen Diaz, then became angry because she thought that Miguel was involved in a fight with the delinquents because of Johnny. Carmen then kicked Johnny out and told him to stay away from her son. In the meantime, a man plans to fix his laptop, so he goes to a computer shop and is served by Robbie, who works as an employee at the shop. Surprisingly, Robbie was only disguised as a store employee and stole the man's laptop. When Robbie was about to sell the laptop, he accidentally found a Cobra Kai flyer on the street. The following day, Sam, who was still angry with her father, decided to skip her breakfast and went straight to school without saying goodbye to her father. Meanwhile, Carmen asks Miguel to tell her about the bullies who are bullying him so that she can report the bullying to the school. However, Miguel refuses to tell his mother anything as it would only make the situation worse. Miguel then begged Carmen to let him practice karate to defend himself, but Carmen refused and told Miguel to stay away from Johnny because he was a bad influence on Miguel. Even though Carmen had forbidden him, Miguel still insisted on practicing karate at Johnny's karate dojo, so he then met Johnny, who told Miguel that everything was over. Johnny, who gets a call from the vice principal who tells him that Robbie is absent for a month, then goes to Robbie's mother's house and finds Robbie playing games with the delinquents. Johnny and Robbie immediately get into a heated argument as they have never had the kind of father-son relationship that favors or cares for each other. Robbie told Johnny that he was going to quit school and that his mother had agreed to it, emphasizing to Johnny that he had no right to speak ill of Robbie's mother because Johnny had never cared for them in the first place. On the other hand, Daniel became the subject of gossip among the residents of All Valley because someone vandalized his billboard with an inappropriate image. Daniel thought that the perpetrator of the vandalism was his business rival, Tom Cole, so Daniel then went to Cole at his car dealership to warn him. Meanwhile at school, Sam tries to be nice to Aisha and calm her down by saying that their schoolmates will soon forget the jokes about Aisha and things will return to normal. However, Aisha argues that she will never forget the humiliation she experienced for the rest of her life and then leaves Sam. In the library, Kyler and his friends bully Eli and Miguel tries to stop them, Unbeknownst to them, Sam was standing behind a bookshelf and finally found out that Kyler was not as good as she thought he was. Johnny, who doesn't want Robbie to quit school, goes to Robbie's mother, Shannon Keene, to demand an explanation because Shannon allowed Robbie to quit school. However, they get into an argument because Shannon feels disappointed in Johnny, who used to abandon her and their son from the start, but now blames her for not being able to educate Robbie, so that Robbie becomes a young delinquent. Later that evening, Kyler invites Sam to watch a movie at the theater, but Sam then confronts Kyler about the bullying he did in the library. Kyler denies it by saying that he was just joking around, then tries to molest Sam. Sam, who refused to be treated indecently by Kyler, then told Kyler to stop. But Kyler ignored her warning, so Sam then did the basic self-defense techniques that had been taught by her father to stop Kyler, and immediately left him. On the other hand, Johnny met Carmen and apologized to her for the beating that Miguel had experienced. Johnny then tries to convince Carmen to let Miguel return to karate training and promises Carmen that he will take good care of Miguel and will not let anyone hurt him again. The next day, Miguel came to the Cobra Kai dojo and told Johnny that his mother allowed him to practice karate again, while Sam finally made up with her father and told Daniel that she had broken up with Kyler. Arriving at his car dealership, Daniel was informed that his employees found Cobra Kai flyers near the billboard, so Daniel immediately knew that the perpetrator of the vandalism was none other than Johnny. In the following weeks, Miguel underwent more intense physical training to improve his fighting skills, and Johnny felt very proud that Miguel was training seriously and showing rapid progress. On the other hand, Johnny decided to rent out his dojo for a few hours to a yoga club so that he could make some extra money to pay for the rent. Meanwhile, Sam chose to go to a party with her family because her friends refused to take Sam to a music concert with them, even though they had previously promised to go to a concert together. Elsewhere, Robbie, who is very attentive to his mother, buys pizza, which is Shannon's favorite food, and hopes that they will spend time together. Unfortunately, Shannon preferred to go on a date with a man rather than spend time with her one and only son who loved her so much. One day, Aisha came to Cobra Kai's dojo to practice karate, but Johnny immediately rejected her because he did not accept female students to practice karate at his dojo. Upon knowing that, Miguel then tried to convince Johnny by saying that Aisha came from a rich family, and because Johnny was in need of money to pay the building rental fee, Johnny finally accepted Aisha as his disciple and immediately told her to prepare herself because they would start training. Before starting training, Aisha tells Johnny that she has been cyber-bullied lately, but Johnny says that bullying in secret is something only cowards do. Johnny assured Aisha that he would teach Aisha to stand up to her bullies, so that they would never bully her again. Upon hearing that, Aisha became even more eager to practice karate and hoped to stop the bullying sooner or later. Johnny immediately started training by having Miguel and Aisha spar, but surprisingly, Aisha could easily knock Miguel down, while Johnny, who seemed impressed with Aisha's strength, then called Aisha a true cobra. In the meantime, Sam approaches Yasmin and her friend, Moon, to ask why they have been avoiding her lately. Yasmin informs her that Kyler ratted Sam out by saying that Sam feels prettier and smarter than Yasmin and Moon. Moon, who still considers Sam as her friend, then tells Sam to apologize to them if Sam still wants to be friends with them. However, Yasmin told Sam to leave because she no longer wanted to be friends with Sam. In the middle of training, Johnny hears a commotion outside, so he goes to check it out and discovers that the landlord, Armand, has doubled the rent fee, and the increase is opposed by the shopkeepers who rent the building, including Johnny. On the other hand, Daniel had apparently made an offer to Armand to buy the building on the grounds that he intended to develop the area because Daniel had lived there when he was in school. However, Armand assumed that Daniel must have other motives because the shop building was located in a slum area, and Daniel had enough money to buy property in the most elite area in All Valley. Later that evening, Johnny intends to pawn some of his valuables to get money so that he can pay the rent for the building, but his efforts are fruitless because his items are not valuable enough to pawn, so the pawn shop owner then tells him to throw the items away. An upset Johnny then decides to vent his frustration by drinking and intends to buy a beer at the convenience store. But unexpectedly, Johnny met Daniel, who deliberately bought the beer for Johnny to make Johnny even more upset, then just left. Upon arriving home, Daniel told his wife that he had solved the problem about the billboard while revealing that the perpetrator of the vandalism was not Tom Cole, but Johnny. Daniel apparently intends to close Johnny's karate dojo because he doesn't want Johnny to instill Cobra Kai's ideals to teenagers, which can cause chaos in the city. Upon learning that, Amanda then became angry at her husband because Daniel had instigated Armand to raise the rent at the shopping building just to get revenge on Johnny, without thinking about the other tenants who became very difficult because Armand doubled the rent. Amanda said that Johnny might be a jerk, but she hoped that Daniel would not turn into a jerk because of his problems with Johnny and Cobra Kai. The next day at the school cafeteria, Sam got a rejection from Aisha when she wanted to sit next to Aisha. Not only that, Sam also became the subject of gossip at school after Kyler spread lies about Sam to humiliate her because Sam refused to make out with him at the movies. Sam, who was upset, tried to confront Kyler and told him to tell the truth in front of their schoolmates, but Kyler and his friends made fun of Sam. At the same time, Miguel, who happened to be near them, then tried to defend Sam, but Kyler and his friends attacked him instead, leaving Miguel with no choice but to fight against them. With his greatly improved fighting skills, Miguel was able to easily take down Kyler and his friends and received appreciation from his schoolmates because Miguel managed to defeat the delinquent students. They also recorded Miguel's action with their cell phone cameras and uploaded the video to social media, and it went viral. For the victory, Johnny, who felt proud of him, then presented Miguel with his traditional uniform for karate or karate-gi, and Miguel seemed happy to get the gift. Unbeknownst to them, Robbie was standing nearby and was jealous of his father's intimacy with another boy. Meanwhile, Daniel visited the grave of his former sensei, Miyagi, to reflect on his mistakes because lately he had let anger get the better of him, causing him to do bad things that he shouldn't have done. After visiting Miyagi's grave, Daniel was reminded of the past when Miyagi advised him to create balance in life so that Daniel could live his life well. As Miguel's fight video went viral on social media, many of his schoolmates became interested in karate and decided to train at Cobra Kai. Johnny, who had just arrived at his dojo, seemed surprised to see the number of students crowding in front of his dojo, and praised Miguel for successfully promoting Cobra Kai through the karate he showed when fighting against Kyler and his friends. On the other hand, Daniel was seen cleaning up the warehouse in his house and turning the place into a karate dojo, because from now on, Daniel had decided to live his life in balance by making karate one of the important parts of his life. Daniel tried to invite Sam to practice karate because Sam used to practice karate when she was 8 years old. But Sam refuses on the grounds that she has to do her homework, while her brother, Anthony, prefers to do karate on a cell phone game, so Daniel becomes a bit frustrated because he has no partner to practice karate with. Meanwhile, Johnny remembers his past when he first learned about karate from the Cobra Kai dojo and was immediately interested in joining Cobra Kai. Right now, Johnny feels a little nervous and excited because this is his first time as a sensei who will train many students, thanks to Miguel. In the middle of training, Johnny gets opposition from Dimitri, who objects when Johnny mocks Eli's slightly deformed lips and demands Johnny to apologize. However, Johnny refuses to apologize and saying that anytime and anywhere, people will still mock Eli, and the only thing Eli can do to stop that is to fight back. For this reason, he will teach Eli to be brave so that Eli will be able to fight back when people mock him. Even so, Dimitri still thinks that Johnny shouldn't mock others because of their physical condition, so Johnny then teaches Dimitri a lesson. Meanwhile, although Robbie deliberately applied for a job at La Russo Auto to make Johnny angry, but he did his job too well, so his seniors pranked Robbie so that Robbie was expelled from his job. Luckily, Daniel arrives before situation get worse and tells Robbie to get back to work as he has no intention of firing Robbie. The next day at school, Sam finally got the chance to thank Miguel for defending her a few days ago. Sam, who was quite impressed with Miguel's spinning kick technique against the bullies, then gave Miguel some tips so that he could strengthen the technique. Upon hearing that, Miguel became quite surprised because Sam apparently understood about karate techniques and wondered if Sam had practiced karate before. Because Johnny insisted on instilling the Cobra Kai idealism frontally to his students, Dimitri and several other students decided to leave the dojo. Miguel tried to warn Johnny to change his way of training them, because most of the students who came to train at the dojo were losers who were often bullied. Miguel advised Johnny to try to be more sensitive and attentive to them because Johnny had never experienced bullying before and felt how difficult it was to live life as a loser who was always ostracized by many people. At night, Johnny ponders Miguel's words while remembering his past when his stepfather verbally insulted him, so Johnny decides to join Cobra Kai to become stronger so that Sid no longer insults him or his mother. On the other hand, Robbie, who was assigned to deliver sales documents to Daniel's house, accidentally saw Daniel practicing karate alone at his house and decided to accept Daniel's offer to become his karate training partner. Meanwhile, Sam, who is in her room, gets an incoming message notification from Miguel which indicates that they have become closer because Sam looks happy when she gets the message. The following day, Johnny discovers that he lost 3 more students, but he doesn't regret it at all as he reveals that he used to be a loser too. Johnny then tells his students that they must shed their loser skin to find their true power, like a cobra shedding its skin. At the same time, Eli arrives with his new badass look, to the point where Johnny gives Eli a cooler nickname. In the meantime, Robbie, who agreed to practice karate with Daniel, turned out to have to do various cleaning jobs, such as wiping windows and mopping floors as initial training before doing karate techniques. Day after day of doing these jobs made Robbie annoyed because he thought that Daniel just wanted to make fun of him instead of teaching him karate techniques. However, Robbie soon realized that the cleaning work actually helped him to do the basic karate techniques more easily, so he became even more active in doing the work. One day, Robbie, who was eating lunch, was suddenly approached by his friends, Trey and Cruz, who planned to steal car parts at La Russo Auto and asked Robbie to cooperate. At first, Robbie refused to help them, but because they threatened him, Robbie had no choice but to obey their words. On the other hand, Miguel, who has romantic feelings for Sam, intends to ask Sam out on a date and asks Johnny for advice. Upon knowing that, Johnny advises Miguel to never give up if Sam refuses to date him. The next day at school, Miguel tries to ask Sam out, but Sam refuses on the grounds that she doesn't want to date anyone yet after the humiliation she got from Kyler because she refused to make out with him. Despite the rejection, Miguel doesn't give up and tries to ask Sam to hang out with him instead of going on a date. Surprisingly, Sam then accepts the invitation because she thinks hanging out with a friend is much more fun than dating. Miguel, who had gotten information from Aisha that Sam liked astronomy, then intended to take her to the observatory. However, Johnny thinks that going to the observatory will be boring and suggests Miguel to take Sam to the golf course. That evening, Miguel takes Sam to the place suggested by Johnny, and Sam seems to like the place because it turns out that her father often took her to the golf course when she was a child. At that place, Miguel and Sam played various fun games and got a lot of coupons that could be exchanged for various prizes they wanted. Of the many prizes on offer, Sam chose a stuffed octopus and Miguel didn't mind Sam's choice at all. While Miguel was spending time with Sam, Johnny went to the tournament committee office to appeal that they were boycotting Cobra Kai's dojo for life, which meant Cobra Kai could not enter any tournaments forever. But unexpectedly, Daniel turned out to be a member of the tournament committee and intended to reject Johnny's appeal. At the same time, Trey and Cruz finally arrived at Daniel's car dealership and found no sign of Robbie. Shortly afterward, Robbie appeared and told them that he refused to help them pull off the heist at La Russo Auto. Upon hearing that, Trey became furious and then attacked Robbie. Surprisingly, Robbie was able to parry the attack, and they got into a fierce fight, which was part of Robbie's plan to trap Trey and Cruz so that their fight was recorded on CCTV cameras. Upon realizing that, Trey and Cruz stopped the fight and threatened to beat Robbie up next time. On the other hand, Daniel tried to convince the other committee members to reject Johnny's appeal, but a committee member gave Johnny the opportunity to present his defense before they made a decision regarding the lifetime boycott of Cobra Kai. In front of Daniel and the members of the All Valley Tournament Committee, Johnny said that Kreese and the Cobra Kai coaches of the past did commit offenses and did not deny Daniel's point about Cobra Kai being in trouble in the 1980s. However, Johnny insists that the Cobra Kai he leads today is a different dojo because he trains students who are often perceived as losers and is determined to make them tougher and more confident so they can defend themselves. Johnny reveals that those kids have changed his life for the better, so he is determined to change those kids' lives for the better by practicing karate at Cobra Kai. After listening to Johnny's defense, the tournament committee members then voted and they agreed to lift the boycott of Cobra Kai so that Cobra Kai could return to the All Valley Karate Championship, although Daniel did not seem happy with the decision. On the other hand, Miguel and Sam are seen enjoying their date while doing some moves in karate, where Miguel becomes very impressed that Sam is able to take him down. Sam tells Miguel to call her sensei, then kisses him. After his date with Sam, Miguel rushed to the dojo to tell Johnny that his date was a success because he followed Johnny's advice. Surprisingly, Johnny is also happy that the tournament committee has lifted Cobra Kai's boycott, allowing them to participate in this year's All Valley U18 Karate Championship. To prepare for the upcoming martial arts tournament, Johnny increased the intensity of their training by practicing in the open area and deliberately starving them during training to train their mentality not to give up easily. While Daniel is hanging out with his family, Daniel discusses Johnny, who managed to lift the boycott on Cobra Kai so that Cobra Kai can return to the Karate Championship. Sam tells her father that Cobra Kai may have changed under Johnny's tutelage because some of her schoolmates have joined Cobra Kai and they are not bullies like Kyler and his friends. However, Daniel thinks that Cobra Kai will never change, especially under Johnny's tutelage, so he then asks Sam to promise to stay away from students from the Cobra Kai dojo, even if they are her schoolmates. In the afternoon, Johnny tells Miguel to practice karate techniques more intensively because Miguel is the only student who is most promising to win the tournament. Miguel seems happy that Johnny considers him the best student and is even more happy when he gets a message from Sam, who sends him some photos. While looking at Sam's photos, Johnny finally found out that Miguel was dating Sam, who is Daniel's daughter. Upon knowing that, Johnny then told Miguel about his past when he met his first love in high school, a girl named Ollie. At that time, Johnny had dated Ollie for 2 years and Johnny really loved Ollie, to the point that he still keeps the headband given by Ollie to this day. However, everything changed after Daniel came to All Valley. Johnny said that he had a fight with Ollie and hoped to make up with Ollie, but Daniel suddenly appeared and began to seduce Ollie. Johnny, who was angry that Daniel was flirting with his girlfriend, warned Daniel, but Daniel punched him instead, and they got into a fight. Not only that, Daniel teases Johnny during a Halloween party, so Johnny and his friends teach Daniel a lesson by ganging up on him. But unexpectedly, Daniel turned out to be training with a karate master who suddenly appeared and beat them up. Johnny and Daniel then agreed to settle their affairs in the 1984 All Valley Karate Championship, but Daniel managed to beat him, and worse, Johnny also lost Ollie, who chose to date Daniel. After telling him everything, Johnny then warns Miguel to be careful with the La Russo family because they might not be as good as people think they are. While Johnny was engaged in a pleasant conversation with Miguel, Daniel was forced to listen to his family quarrel because Amanda was at odds with his mother, who defended Louis, Daniel's cousin. Amanda, who was upset, refused to give in to her mother-in-law because so far she had been patient enough to deal with Daniel's family, who often acted arbitrarily. Later that evening, Carmen invited Johnny to dinner with her family, where Carmen told him about her getting married at the age of 18. After giving birth to Miguel, Carmen found out about her husband's real job, which turned out to be a criminal, so Carmen decided to run away from her husband and take Miguel away with her. After having dinner with Carmen and having a nice conversation with Carmen and her mother, Johnny decided to change his life by doing good things after Carmen told him not to let past mistakes dictate their future. Johnny started cleaning up his dirty and messy apartment and started good habits by drinking less beer and more fresh fruit and vegetable juices. On the other hand, Robbie has also gradually changed for the better after he met Daniel and worked at La Russo Auto. Robbie also gets the opportunity to practice karate exclusively with Daniel, who is a former karate champion, and get to know Daniel's beautiful daughter. One day, Daniel took Robbie to the forest to learn the core of the Miyagi-Do dojo's ideal of being one with nature. After doing a series of exercises together, Daniel then told Robbie to practice his balance on a tree. Initially, Robbie failed several times, so Daniel suggested that Robbie train balance in his life, starting with training his emotions, because Daniel knew that Robbie grew up without the presence of a father who could be used as a role model. Upon hearing that, Robbie was reminded of Johnny, who seemed to be close with a teenage boy at his age, like the closeness of a father and his son, which made Robbie hurt and angry. Robbie had intended to reveal to Daniel about his identity as Johnny's son, but he then undid his intention because he didn't want to disappoint Daniel. On the other hand, Johnny, who has decided to get rid of all the bitter memories of his past, then meets Sid to return the money he borrowed while saying goodbye to Sid because he will not come to see him again. In the evening, Daniel returned home and seemed happy to find that Amanda and his mother had made up, and they even looked very close while cooking dinner together. Daniel then praised Sam for making her mother and her grandmother get along again, and invited Robbie to have dinner with them. Meanwhile, Miguel assumed that Sam hid their relationship from Daniel because Sam didn't want her father to find out that she was dating Johnny's disciple, who was his rival. Aisha then suggested Miguel to meet Daniel while telling Miguel that Daniel is a good man, so he would definitely accept Miguel as he is. Upon hearing that, Miguel ventured to come to the La Russo family's house, but when he arrived there, he accidentally saw Sam and her family, who were having dinner with Robbie, and they looked very close with each other. On the other hand, while Johnny was writing a letter to Robbie, he was suddenly surprised by the appearance of the thugs who burned his car. The thugs were hired by Louis because Louis wanted to teach Johnny a lesson. The next day, Johnny, who thought that Daniel had ordered them, then came to Daniel's house to take revenge, but Daniel emphasized that he was not involved with the thugs at all. When Johnny and Daniel almost started a fight, Amanda appeared and immediately broke them up by inviting Johnny to have breakfast with them. Johnny did not waste the offer, and the three of them then sat together in the dining room to enjoy the breakfast that Amanda had prepared. However, Johnny and Daniel got into another heated argument when Johnny revealed that Daniel's daughter was the one who had hit his car the other day, and instead of taking responsibility for carelessly hitting Johnny's car, Sam and her friends decided to run away. Upon hearing that, Amanda proposed to Daniel to give a used car to Johnny as compensation, and Daniel reluctantly followed Amanda's suggestion. Daniel then took Johnny to his car dealership and told him to choose several used cars that interested him, while emphasizing that all the used cars in his car dealership were much more expensive than Johnny's car, which was burned by the thugs. Johnny then chose a sports car and demanded that Daniel must accompany him on a test drive to ensure that the car had no problems, even though Daniel had confirmed to Johnny that the car was in good condition. Meanwhile at school, Miguel seemed to be having trouble concentrating because he was still thinking about Sam chatting so intimately with a handsome young man in her house. Dimitri tried to calm Miguel by saying that the young man might be her relative because he was quite familiar with Sam's family, but Miguel disagreed with him. Miguel, who looked upset and jealous, then tried to convince Sam to invite him to her house and introduce him to her parents. However, Sam could not do that because Daniel hated Johnny and Cobra Kai and assumed that her father would also hate Miguel, who was Johnny's disciple. On the other hand, Aisha and her friends planned to ruin Yasmin's birthday party by throwing an after-party at the location to get revenge on Yasmin for cyberbullying her. When Sam arrived home, Amanda immediately confronted her about the hit-and-run incident committed by Sam and her friends. Sam admits that she and her friends did hit a man's car a few weeks ago, but she was not the one driving the car. Even so, Amanda was angry at Sam because Sam should have reported the incident to them, instead of running away from responsibility that could cause big problems later on. Amanda then asked Sam to hand over her cell phone and told Sam to stay home as punishment. Meanwhile, Miguel, who felt guilty for being jealous and suspicious of Sam, then tried to apologize to Sam by sending a message and calling Sam. However, because Amanda confiscated Sam's cell phone, Miguel was unable to reach Sam at all and thought that Sam was angry with him. While conducting test drive, Johnny seemed a little surprised to find out that Daniel had the same taste in music as him. Daniel then told Johnny to stop by an old apartment building that used to be his residence when he was in school. While reminiscing about his past, Johnny revealed that during school, he lived in his stepfather's house and was always bullied by him, so Johnny decided to join Cobra Kai to become stronger in order to defend himself and his mother from his stepfather. Upon realizing that they have a few things in common, besides karate, Daniel and Johnny then decide to reminisce over drinks at a bar, where they both agree that karate has changed their lives and also their master, who they have considered as the father figure they desire. Although Kreese is not entirely a good father figure for Johnny, because Kreese once tried to kill him after Johnny was defeated by Daniel. Johnny and Daniel then discussed Ollie, the girl they had loved in high school, even though Ollie eventually married another man. Soon after that, Robbie came to Daniel's house for karate practice and met Sam, who seemed upset because her mother confiscated her cell phone and prohibited her from leaving the house. Upon learning that, Robbie decided to help Sam by pretending to be dislocated after training, so Amanda then told Sam to take Robbie home. Because Robbie had helped her out of the house, Sam then invited Robbie to a party organized by Aisha. Meanwhile at the party, Eli, who has turned into a more confident teenage boy, finally gets the chance to kiss a girl who is none other than Moon. Eli then advises Dimitri to be bolder and more confident, so Dimitri tries his luck by approaching Yasmin, a girl he has had a crush on for a long time. Unfortunately, Yasmin is not interested in Dimitri at all and calls him a loser. Yasmin, who was fed up with the party, then asked Moon to leave, but Moon refused and said that she had apologized to Aisha, so they were now friends. Moon suggested that Yasmin apologize to Aisha as well, but Yasmin refused, so Aisha decided to get back at Yasmin by knocking her down. At the same time, Sam and Robbie finally arrive at the party, where Sam then introduces Robbie to Miguel. Miguel, who saw Sam and Robbie's intimacy, could not contain his jealousy and asked Sam about Robbie. Miguel, who was angry because Sam came with Robbie, who was her father's employee, then pushed Robbie and they almost got into a fight if only Sam didn't try to stop Miguel. But unexpectedly, Miguel accidentally hit Sam when she tried to stop him, so Sam then became angry and told Miguel that her father's assessment of Cobra Kai had been correct, and she felt very disappointed in Miguel for being rude to Robbie. An angry Sam then left the party, ignoring Miguel, who tried to apologize to her. Robbie then drove Sam back to her house and tried to explain her situation to Daniel, who had just returned home. Surprisingly, Daniel was driven home by Johnny, who seemed very surprised to find out that Robbie worked for Daniel and had even practiced karate with Daniel. Johnny, who misunderstood, intends to beat Daniel because he thinks that Daniel has deceived him, but Robbie then defends Daniel and prepares to fight his own father. Johnny, who did not want to fight with his son, chose to leave, while Daniel, who felt he had been lied to by Robbie, decided to fire Robbie from his job, even forbidding Robbie to come to his house. Sometime later, on the day of the tournament, Johnny tried to make Miguel and the Cobra Kai students more excited about the tournament by giving them new uniforms. On the other hand, Carmen and her mother are seen coming to support Miguel, who will compete in the karate championship, and Carmen seems worried about Miguel because she doesn't want her beloved son to get hurt. Daniel and his family also came to the tournament because LaRusso Auto was the main sponsor. Surprisingly, Robbie apparently signed up for the karate championship as an independent karateka who is not affiliated with any dojo. Johnny and Miguel seemed surprised by Robbie's presence, as well as Daniel, who did not expect that Robbie would participate in the tournament independently. Battle after battle was won by Miguel, who was Cobra Kai's best student, while Daniel seemed so excited to see Robbie show his great karate techniques and managed to defeat his opponents. Not only Miguel, other Cobra Kai students such as Aisha and Eli were also able to defeat their opponents. Even Eli managed to enter the semifinals with Miguel, Robbie, and also a young man named Stone. In the semifinal match, Miguel faced Stone, who was the best student in his dojo. Their fight was quite fierce, but Miguel had greater fighting skills than Stone, so he managed to defeat Stone. In the next match, Eli had to face Robbie, who was Daniel's disciple. Daniel was initially reluctant to recognize Robbie as his disciple, but after seeing Robbie, who lost 1 point to Eli, Daniel could not resist reminding Robbie to focus more and give his support to Robbie. After receiving support from Daniel, Robbie finally managed to turn things around, but Eli cheated by injuring Robbie's shoulder so that he was disqualified from the tournament and Robbie had the right to advance to the final round. During the break, Daniel met Robbie in the locker room, where Robbie then apologized to Daniel and revealed to Daniel about his intention to take revenge on Johnny. Upon learning that, Daniel advised Robbie that Robbie would never achieve balance if Robbie let his hatred for Johnny grow inside him. Daniel told Robbie that he did not like Johnny, but he never hated him because Johnny was also a human who could make mistakes. Daniel told Robbie that Johnny was taught by the worst teacher ever, which made Johnny who he is today. Even so, Daniel tells Robbie that he doesn't need to hate his father or follow his way of life, and suggests that Robbie discard his hatred and anger to gain balance and live a better life. Meanwhile, Miguel tried to apologize to Sam, but Sam refused to make up with Miguel because Miguel considered Robbie as his enemy and intended to attack Robbie in the final round. Sam, who was upset with Miguel, then decided to go home because she didn't want to watch the final match between Miguel and Robbie. In the final match, Daniel officially signed up to be Robbie's coach, and Johnny was not happy about it. Miguel, who was intent on getting back at Robbie for thinking he had seduced his girlfriend, then launched a relentless attack on Robbie, who had injured his shoulder. Miguel managed to knock Robbie down several times, but Robbie refused to give up despite the injury. Robbie then tried to fight back and managed to knock Miguel down, but Miguel retaliated by attacking illegally, so he then received a warning from the referee. Upon seeing that, Johnny, who remembered his past when he fought Daniel, advised Miguel to fight fairly because they had to win the right way. However, Miguel, who had been instigated by Kreese's Cobra Kai ideals, chose to continue the match with Cobra Kai ideals that showed no mercy to his opponents. In the end, Miguel won the match and Cobra Kai won the All Valley Karate Championship after a long time. However, Johnny did not seem happy with the victory, because after all, Johnny was worried about his son who was injured. After the match, Johnny approached Robbie and apologized to his son, while Robbie, who had decided to follow Daniel's advice, told his father that he had forgiven him. On the other hand, Miguel also seemed unhappy with his victory as Sam apparently chose to go home instead of watching his match against Robbie. Later that night, Daniel took Robbie to a location where he had officially established the Miyagi-Do dojo and intended to recruit other students to rival Cobra Kai, while Sam was seen practicing karate at her house. The series ends by showing Johnny celebrating Cobra Kai's victory alone and is surprised by the appearance of his sensei, Kreese, who comes to his dojo. The moral message that we can learn from this series is to never let hatred and anger rule us, because we will never feel calm and happy if our lives are filled with hatred and revenge. Don't forget that every saint has a past, and every sinner has a future, so we must do good to everyone regardless of their background.